welcome back to Demystifying Men with yours truly, Rachel Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this week's installment of Demystifying Men with yours truly, Rachel Davis. And I have to tell you, I am flat out excited about the gentleman that you are going to have this opportunity to hear from. This man is the epitome of kingship. And as I shared with you all, this season is all about kingship. I have the honor and the amazing pleasure of having one of the men that I honestly, from the bottom, from the pit of my stomach, from the bottom of my heart, that I've respected. And this is none other than our very own Mr. Darnell Self. So Mr. Self, how are you today?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you have taken time out of your busy schedule to spend some time with us today. And please do me a favor and let your beautiful wife know that we thank her for allowing us to take some time, allowing us to have you take some time away from her to spend some time with us today.
Absolutely. I'll certainly tell her you said hello.
Excellent, excellent. So this season is all about kingship, and what we really want our viewers to know and to learn is the epitome of what it means to be king. And as I shared with you prior to us getting started, exactly what that means and what that looks like. And you certainly, sir, have demonstrated what kingship is in terms of being able to create a financial fortress around your family that is impenetrable, being able to create success in terms of passing on the legacy of wealth and personal development to your children, having an amazing union that has withstood the test of time, being in a position where you're doing well by doing good for others from a philanthropic perspective. You speak, you train, you coach, you empower, you energize, you motivate, and you're still very humble, still very level, still very down to earth. And you're at a stage in your life where you no longer have to hustle and you rule your kingdom as most kings do. And so I wanted to take this opportunity for you to share with our viewers a little bit about yourself. I mean, I can go on and on and on and share how you've moved and impacted my life as well as my husband's and countless of other people. But I want our viewers to get a dose of you, Mr. Self. So if you don't mind, take a couple of minutes and let the world, let the women and men of Demystifying know a little bit about who you are and what you do, and share your story with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I mean, how humbling to hear those things. And so I'm glad that, something I said or did at some point in my life has made an impact in the lives of others. That's always something I'm so grateful for and honored to be in that position. But yeah, I grew up here in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area, where I still live, about 15 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. My wife and I will be celebrating our 27th wedding anniversary this July. We have 4 amazing young adults. One's out on his own, 2 are in college, one's a senior, one's a sophomore. And then our daughter, the only girl, is a freshman at Spelman in Atlanta. So she's the furthest away from us. And my wife and I, Tracy and I, met at the mall. I was working part-time at a men's and women's clothing store to make extra money while I was in school for books, et cetera, to help my mom out. And my wife decided to get a job at the same store. And I said, she's pretty. And, her side of the story is that she walked past the mall and she said, that man is fine. I'm gonna get a job in there. So she did. She got the job, and her side of the story is she got the man. And she's so funny. But she was a cashier. I eventually became the manager. We became friends. We dated, and we got married. Working there at the mall together. Once she received her degree from Morgan State, she went on to pursue broadcast journalism at BET, Black Entertainment Television, and I continued to manage that store. What I did not like was the 60 to 80-hour work weeks. Not because I didn't like retail, but I didn't like missing out on things in my personal life. And we're just starting a young family, and if anyone who's worked retail, the Saturdays and Sundays are the most important time there. So you miss everything that happens in your personal life, like sporting events, birthday parties, family reunions, church, anything that happened on a Saturday or Sunday. Darnell was counted out because I was at the mall. Long story short, I became an entrepreneur, which always sounds good when you say it. But there was I call it my season of preparation from 25 years old to almost 29 years old. My wife and I went through a struggle, a downward spiral where we went from 2 cars to 1 car, lost our last car. And I didn't really lose it. When you lose something, you don't know where to find it. I knew where to find my car. It was at Toyota Motor Corporation parking lot. But I like to say I lost it, but it was repossessed. So, but at 29, everything turned around for us. In fact, by the time Tracy turned 29, which at that point was 2 years later, she was able to walk away from BET on maternity leave. We called it eternity leave. She's been a stay-at-home mom now for 21 years. And it has been a blessing for us to be in a position, as you said, where we wake up every day thinking about who we can bless, who we can serve, who we can help. And it's just, we're very grateful. We're very thankful.
Excellent. Beautiful summation. And there's so much more to that story. And we're going to do our best to delve into it as much as we possibly can. But in my book, Demystifying Men, I talk about how kings treat their queens as equals. And, most people would look at the Zoom and say it would have been, in terms of your wife being there for you, and she's now a stay-at-home mom. And some people would denote that as, not necessarily having a position of power or of strength, but we all know that we have a role to play in relationships as your equal. And I want you to really articulate that to our viewers. How has she been able to be by your side, to support you, to encourage you, and to help nurture you to the point of you becoming the king that you are?
Yeah. So we had an opportunity to, as any couples that withstand the test of time, who desire to be better and more complementary of each other, we desired to be the best that we could be for each other and with each other. And because of that, we learned each other. And sometimes there's an expectation, like I would just want him to say this. I just want her to say this. Yeah, but I don't know that unless you tell me. And so we've had so many awesome opportunities to grow. And because of that, she became even more complimentary to who I am and my purpose, and vice versa, right? And so because, and I sometimes I try my best not to get defensive, but sometimes you run into people and they're like, so what does your wife do? I'm like, well, she stayed on mom. Oh, but what else does she do? Is that all she does? It's like almost like it minimizes who she is and what she brings to the table because I'm the breadwinner. But that is not true. Like I would not be who I am today and be the man, be the father, be the leader I am today without her affirmations, without her support, right? Without her love, and without her complimenting our business. Like how in the world could I travel as I had to travel as we built our business without her being able to do the things she was able to do? So I did not have to worry about some of the things that some of my single friends had to worry about because my wife was on it. And so she does all the finances around the house. We figured out our roles. And some of those changed along the way. But so she went to women's events. I went to Miles Monroe's and men's events, TD Jakes men's events, and I just became a better man, a better king for my queen. And so it's you're absolutely right. I mean, there's the reason why the very first people say, once you had success, what was the very first trapping of success? I mean, what'd you do to spoil yourself? Because sometimes you got to take a vacation, do something, right? Mm-hmm. And the very first thing I did was purchased a vehicle for my wife, not my car. I didn't, because I wanted her to know that every single thing that she contributed along the way was just as valuable as me, even if my activities, my seed sowing seemed to be the seed that brought in the harvest. But it was her cultivation, it was her prayers, it was her, right? So all of that allowed us to have this amazing garden that we eat from today, even though it may look like I had the overalls on. Again, which she did was necessary for that harvest as well. So anyway, I just say all of that to say sometimes, looking from the outside in, people think, that things are one way, but in having conversations, they realize, oh my gosh, how awesome is that? And I'm glad that a lot of stay-at-home moms are inspired by her to realize that she's not less than, she's equal to, and in a lot of cases, she was more than. She was
Absolutely.
more than, right? So, and you don't realize it till you've got to do that job. Because I've had to do that job. She's taking that, girls trips, hanging out with her sister, going on vacation. I'm like, oh my, and the kids are like, Dad, that's not how mom does it. I'm like, I'm sorry.
And I wanted you to articulate that point, because I think there is a huge misconception about the role women play in the dynamics of having a successful union, in the dynamics of having a successful relationship. In essence, you couldn't be who you were. You couldn't be who you currently are if she wasn't who she was. And if she currently isn't who she is. And I don't want anyone to feel as though we all don't have a role to play. And in the overall kingdom, and that's what's coming up next, is Demystifying Women, the overall kingdom, in the sense as far as the role that a woman plays, the role that the queen plays within a relationship is in fact equally, if not more important, even in the game of chess, if not more important than the role of the king. And so you beautifully shared the power that she brought to your union, the power that she brought to your relationship, because I know many women, who wouldn't necessarily have the grace and the foresight, the knowledge and the stick-to-itiveness would have been a hamper. I've seen it all the time in entrepreneurship, where one person is really, and it could be the man or the woman, it could be vice versa, where the other person isn't there to be able to undergird what needs to happen in order for you to elevate the union as a whole. So thank you for telling us about that, and for sharing the role that your beautiful wife plays. And she is absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you. And I'm probably making it sound, I don't want to say easier, but I'm probably making it sound like the road was not paved with barriers, speed bumps, and that's not true. And I don't want to give a false expectation to your audience, because it wasn't always fun dealing with the challenges that come along with not having any money, feeling, as for me, because my esteem was low, because I could not feed my kids, I could not provide the things I felt like my family deserved. And so there's a deeper dive. We could always go into it another time, but when I say Tracy didn't get her nails done, she didn't get her hair done. So, some of the things that sometimes you would think that's just normal. It wasn't normal in our household. It was not normal. And her willingness, right? Yeah. Her willingness to say, none of this means anything to me. You've already painted the picture of where we're headed. I believe in you. I trust you. And this is short term. That I cannot put a price tag on. I cannot. And it seems like, listen, 4 years when you're going through it seems like forever. 4 years feels like 40 years when you're going through it. You know what I mean? Literally, I borrowed money from my in-laws, her parents. I borrowed money from my mom. It was tough. And but yet, she never treated me differently, and she's always said, hey, I trust you. I don't even know about the whole entrepreneurial venture thing, but I trust you. And so that's why I'm so grateful. That's why I'm so thankful. And that's why, we share. Our finances, everything is shared. It's not mine, it's ours. We built this empire together.
Yes, her selflessness is powerful. Yeah, thank you for sharing it. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in the world we live in today, where it is all about, well, what can you do for me now? Or what can you give me now? Or what can you bring to the table now? Or, you know, you hear a lot of women saying, well, you know what, I am the table. And understanding that in order to, again, this is for the women who desire to have a man in their life who exhibits king-like qualities.
Right.
It is incumbent upon you to come together and to create partnership based on what partnership looks like.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, and what it looks like for him. And you have to ask yourself, if this is what partnership looks like for him, as a woman, you need to ask yourself, mind, body, and spirit, is this us? Because it's not just, you know, one facet of your being that needs to be in unison with him. It's your mind, body, and spirit. And so I tell the ladies all the time, you've got to ask yourself, is this us? Take the collective view into consideration. Understand what his idea of partnership is. And if it comes together perfectly, then you've got the winning formula for a successful union.
Oh, it's so true, isn't it? And some of these things, Ms. Davis, is so eye-opening as long as our eyes are open. So let me explain.
I like that.
So like when Tracy and I were dating, and even when I do business, there's some telltale signs for me, right? And there's some red flags, and I can't try to color that flag a different color. Mm-hmm. Right? You have shown me. Now, it doesn't mean that that person doesn't have room for growth, because we all have room for growth. But it also does not mean that you have to be in matrimony, that has to be that person for you. And this is why I had this home conversation with my kids. We have family meetings once a month, by the way, with our kids. We talk about finances, social media, relationships. And so my wife and I, and you don't know what people are paying attention to, right? So we're at a restaurant, and her fork falls off the table. And so I had the server, hey, can you bring another plate setting? And meanwhile, I gave her mine. Now, I'm not paying attention. This is just who I am, right? To me, that's not special. This is how my mom raised me. So I gave her mine. She's like, why would you give me yours? Because if anybody's gonna eat, you should be eating right now. I could wait. It's not a big deal. And again, this is what I'm saying. Not everybody's looking for a selfless person. I know it sounds crazy, but some folks are like, I need a man with money. I need a woman with it, right? So for me, for her, it was important that she had a selfless man. That was a quality that she was looking for, someone who thought about her first. Not always me. Don't get me wrong. I know you got to put your mask on when you're suffering. I get all of that. We can talk about that another time. That's priorities versus balance, which is a big question that people ask us all the time at our marriage retreats. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, it's, you know, those that's what I mean by little things like that. To me, if that's what you're looking for, someone who's selfless, then those are the little signs like that would tell you. Or is that man over there eating like, oh well, I can't believe they didn't bring your fork yet. And then, right? And you're like,
okay.
Hey, that's who this is. Okay. And look, and again, that quality may not be critical for that particular woman. But if it is, pay attention.
Absolutely. Is this us, mind, body, and spirit, you know? Yeah. So I agree that selflessness is huge. And we can literally spend another hour talking about selflessness. I love it. I love it. But I do want you to share with our listeners what Howard Hewitt means to the both of you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I did I'm on Instagram and a little bit of TikTok, a little bit of Facebook, but mostly Instagram. And I put the video out there on our 15th wedding anniversary. I wanted to surprise my wife because when I proposed to my wife, and I'll never forget it, I was in my Honda Accord in her parents' driveway. And I'm about to age myself. I put in a cassette tape of Howard Hewitt and For the Lover in You. And so, he starts to sing, and when he gets to the lyric, this ring, I pull out the ring because I thought that was cool, but now that I think back on it, it's like a little corny, but I thought it was cool. So she screams, and she didn't even say yes, which is crazy. She just screamed and ran in to tell her mom, like, I hope that's a yes. And it was. So here we are.
It's a yes.
So we struggled, right? So we had a good job at that point, right? At managing this retail store. And as I mentioned earlier, I stepped out to become an entrepreneur, and things didn't go well for a little bit. And I shouldn't say that. They went exactly how they were supposed to go, right? It has humbled me. It put me in a place where I never have to speak at people, but with people, because I know what it's like not to have. I mean, so I'm very thankful for that season in my life now, but then it was very frustrating. I'm like, God, why? Like, I thought I'd be further along in life. It was just tough. So I say all that to say, on our 15th wedding anniversary, everything had changed financially for us. Everything had changed. And so we got a group of friends, went to Puerto Rico, and I had the DJ. We had a little Spanish band in the back of our villa, in the backyard of our villa, right on the ocean, literally right on the ocean. And so the Spanish band is playing the Howard Hewitt song. So I get on my knee and I said, hey, everybody, just so you know, I couldn't get on my knee back then because I was inside of my Honda Accord, but today I'm going to get on my knee. And Tracy's whispering, right? If you watch the video, she's like, hope you didn't give me another ring. I love my ring. I was like, just, it's okay, it's okay. So she was like, oh my gosh, you remember this song? Because she listened to the band playing the song, but it was not the band. She thought it was a band. It was Howard Hewitt walking down the beach in all white, singing the song. And she looked up, Mrs. Davis, when I say it was the best feeling in the world, she's like, no way you get Howard Hewitt here to Puerto Rico. You know, like, so she is going crazy. And look, you would think she hugged me, and why she'd want to go hug Howard Hewitt? I'm not the jealous type at all, so it didn't matter to me, but it was so funny. And he stayed and did a whole concert for our friends. It was a beautiful time. And, you know, again, so grateful and thankful that we have been able to talk about our struggles and be in that place, and then have some of the things we were able to do. And that's just one of the many things that we're, you know, been so blessed to be able to do and celebrate and create amazing memories together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I loved every bit of the video. I promise you, I was there in spirit. I was there. You didn't see me. I was there. I was so there. Which is a great way for us to pre-frame the fact that there obviously have been some lessons learned on your journey for marriage, and certain things that if you could, you would do differently. And to know that for you to get to such high pinnacles, like the peak of just love, of just prosperity, abundance, joy, peace, health, wealth, and being able to give back, there was as high as the highs were, the lows were just as low as well. And I know you talked about, you know, the challenging times within, you know, the first 4 to 5 years and getting started from your entrepreneurial journey. But how were some of those lows? What were some of the lessons learned that you experienced coming out of that lows into the highs? I wanted to talk to the people and have you share the highs, but don't be fooled by the fact that there weren't some lows that came which caused the high to be so sweet. So what are some of the lessons learned, if you could, some tips you could, just, you know, pearls of wisdom, gems of wisdom that you can provide about the lows on your way up to the highs?
Yeah, you're so well spoken. I feel like I don't need to talk at all. I'm just gonna let you talk, and you just be me.
No. No.
So, I mean, it's so many, right? But it is all perception, right? I mean, what is a low unless it's compared to something else, right? So it's relative. You know, because when I think about our lows now, and I'm like, was that really low? Or was it what I perceived as low? And why did I perceive that? Was it in comparison to someone else's low? Or at least I guess we haven't gone through that in our marriage. You know what I mean? Is it the comparison?
Right.
So, but I will share a couple of things that I have learned in our 27 years of being married. One would be growing together. I mean, personal growth has been critical. It has allowed us to see each other the person that we become, not the person we used to be. Because if you're not careful in any relationship, even a friendship, you'll keep talking to the person as if they're the person they were 5 years ago. And hopefully they are not. You know what I mean? Like, well, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that, you don't even know the new me if you're talking to me like I was 5 years ago, because personal growth says that I have grown. I don't even respond to the things I used to respond to, right? So, or maybe respond differently. So I'm so thankful that we chose to grow together, because in the beginning, we weren't. You know what I mean? Because my profession is all about personal growth. And so Tracy was like, okay, well, that's good. But for me, it was, everything was always positive. Everything was always optimistic. He's like, nothing has to be that positive all the time. I'm like, why not? Nothing has to be that negative all the time, right? So that was the conflict. I'm like, why does it have to be negative? Or why does it be positive? I mean, something could be wrong sometimes, right? And so until we decide, you know what, let's grow together.
Nice.
And so we read books together, we attended seminars together, marriage retreats, obviously, together. So we started growing, and it was phenomenal. It's like we got married all again, right? Because every year, think about this, you're meeting the new Tracy, the new Darnell. And we're like, right? And so my wife didn't even like flowers in the beginning. She's like, don't give me flowers. But what if I still treated her as if she was the old Tracy? Because she loves flowers now. But if I didn't get a chance to meet the new her, I'm still not getting her flowers, thinking that's the old 15-year ago Tracy. But that's not the case. You know what I mean? That's good to know, to redate, so those are lessons that we learned there. Plus, here's the scary part. If you are growing and your significant other is not, they will express their enthusiasm and excitement about who they're becoming to someone else who will appreciate, maybe or maybe not, but at least seemingly appreciate who they're becoming. And they feel like, well, my significant other doesn't even appreciate who I'm becoming.
Right.
And so learning those things really helped us out. And again, as a traveling man, always travel with my family. That was a huge benefit for me, right? To be able to travel either with my wife, my mother-in-law, my mom, sister-in-law, my kids. In fact, I traveled with each of my kids separately. So we built an individual relationship, because sometimes when they're all together, there's a different conversation than when I'm alone.
Right.
So those are all things that I would certainly do all over again, and do even more of that. Because that kept me as a traveling entrepreneur. Even though I was married, there's a bunch of single women out there. And it was awesome for me to be around people who were always looking out, even when I was blinded by things. And so that was really helpful for me, to have that, and to also, I guess the last gem I would share, and there's so many that I could share, but the last one was, or is, us seeing priority over balance.
Talk a little bit about that. Share with us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so my wife is the one who really articulates this even better than myself, because a lot of folks have said, hey, look, man, you got your business, you got your nonprofit, you got family, in terms of your kids, they all have different events going on, dance recitals, track meets, football. I mean, it's like a lot going on, right? And then, and all the other things, you have in life. So one of the most common questions we get is, how do you balance it all? My wife said something one day, and I thought, oh my gosh, how awesome is that? And she's like, we don't, we just set priorities. Balance balance seems to say that it's 25% here, 25% here, 25% here, 25% here, right? Or if it's 5 categories, 20%. Seems like it's even, it's balanced. And it's not. It's never been, but it's always been prioritized. So in my calendar, if you look at my calendar, the first thing that goes in there are the things that are most important to me. You see, and seasons may dictate that, depending on the conversation Tracy and I had. So when we didn't have any money, one of the priorities was, let's get out of this debt. So one of the priorities was, hey, we don't have to go on a date. We don't have to do, we don't need a movie night right now. We got to pay these bills. So the priority in the calendar was, what can we put in here that's going to generate income? As that shifted, the priority was, Tracy and I would say, hey, you want to do lunch Tuesday? Great, bam. So when someone says, hey, you got any opportunities to do a presentation or a meeting on Tuesday? I'm like, not between noon and 2, but I can do 3. I didn't say because I have lunch with my wife. They don't need to know my business. They just know that I don't have between 12 and 2 because that was my priority. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. So, and we've done that because people are like, how do you make it to every football game, every track meet? Because it's a priority. It's already in my calendar. I'm supposed to ask, and I'm like, I can't do that Saturday, but I can do. And sometimes I even do red eyes, right? I'll come back from California to get back on a Saturday to make it to the game because 2 things were important, right? One thing was going to elevate our empire, our financial empire we're building. And the other was being there for my son. And sometimes I mix them together, right? I'm like, oh, my son's playing football in California. Perfect. I'll set up the meeting in California. So again, but it was always calendared, right? By priority, what was important. So that's what we mean by priority, not balance. Sometimes it was 10%, sometimes it was 90%. I'm not 90% of my time is not spent in church. That doesn't mean that faith isn't important to me.
Yes.
Right? So that's what is weird when people are like, well, you put that over church. No, I didn't, because church is in here first. Church is my priority. My faith is my priority because guess what? It's already in there. Business is not in there yet, but my Bible study is, or whatever, is important to, I know there may be different religions in the audience, but my point is that whatever is important to you should be in your calendar. It speaks to it. All right, I can tell you what your priorities are when I look at your calendar.
That's right. So that's right.
That's right. So that's how we did that. And we've always done it that way. The thing you have to be careful of is trying to meet other people's expectations over your life. Because other people will try to tell you what your priorities should be. Like when I missed my daughter's birthday, they were like, I can't believe you missed. I'm like, she was 1. She didn't know she was turning 1 that day. We celebrated next weekend. And we did. She's never known she missed it. She's still, she's 18 now. She doesn't know she messes with me now because I tell her the story. She's like that. She's like, I remember. I can't believe you missed it. But she jokes saying it because she really does it. Right. And she's had an amazing life. But anyway, but I had to be careful because other people's expectation over how I should have been fathering was like, I can't believe you missed her first birthday, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, you were at your daughter's first birthday and now still have not been able to do all the things you said you were going to do for her because you allowed other people to set your priorities.
Wow. Kingship philosophies, kingship principles.
I hope I'm not making any enemies. I really pray I'm not making any enemies. It's just, my thoughts.
No, this is phenomenal. It's great. And if for nothing more, you're giving people an opportunity to think differently, to shift their mindset differently, and to, again, understand the difference between priorities and balances, which leads me to a question that I have in regards to your success habits. But before we get into success habits and entrepreneurial, because I really want our viewers to get a load of all that you do, one part that I really wanted to ask about is fatherhood. And I would be remiss as far as kingship is concerned to not talk about fatherhood. And if you can just share with us, just what is one of the biggest lessons that fatherhood has taught you?
Yeah, let me just say that it is one of my most favorite things in this world is being a dad, being a father. When I say it, I'm getting chills thinking about it. I love being a father. Love it. And I don't care. I'm emotional about my kids. They know of my boys. And so I've learned the lesson I'll share with you. I learned a long time ago. It was, I was on an island called Mfumgamo. It sits on the 2nd largest lake in the world, Lake Victoria, in Africa. And we were at this fisher fisherman village, and I saw two grown men. I don't really know their ages, but two grown men interlocking fingers like this, walking, holding hands. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And they were just walking, just happy. And, in the United States, we would probably assume those are gay men, because typically two adult men holding hands, you would say, oh, there's some affection there, some intimacy there.
Right.
That would be the perception. But the gentleman who was, talking to us just about Africa and a little bit about that area said, that's father and son. And when I say it touched me, and I thought to myself that day, why is it that I'm less affectionate with my boys as they get older, as if I love them less? Are they thinking that I love them less because I show them less love? And when I say it hit me, and I thought, I don't show my daughter less love as she gets older. Why do I show my boys less love as they get older? Like, why am I not affectionate with them? Why don't I hug them in public? Why don't I, right? And it changed me. That was a long, long, long time ago. And so my boys were really small then, but someone wrote an article on our family because we were at a graduation, and he was 16 at the time. Malik was 16. And as I'm talking to him, I'm just rubbing the back of his neck, but I didn't realize I was doing it. And so I'm just rubbing, and this is years after that revelation. And so I'm just rubbing the back of his neck. And so afterwards, the guy comes up to me after graduation. He's like, is that your son? I said, yes, sir. And he's like, how old is he? I said, 16. He said, I've never seen a father that affectionate in public with a 16-year-old son. And this is what he said, and the son being so receptive. He wasn't like pulling away. He was so engaged with you. And I didn't even think, I'm like, oh. He's like, do you mind if I write an article on your family? Are you that way with all your kids? And I was like, yeah. So anyways, just, so that was a big lesson for me, is that, I don't want my kids to think they have to go outside this house to find love.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, yes, I want them to meet whoever their soulmates are and all that great stuff, but I don't want them to say, dad didn't love me. And if he did, he never told me, never showed me, because that's not the case. And so that was one of my fatherhood lessons.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that and the vulnerability that you've displayed in sharing that. And as you were talking and sharing that intimate moment with your son, as well as what you learned from watching those two men in Africa, the one thing that came to mind is how infrequently men are touched, and how touch is the most powerful non-verbal display of love and affection that you can just bestow upon the person that you really love. And so I, for a brief moment, thought to myself, what would this world be like? What would our young men, who would they become if they were able to receive that type of love and affection from their fathers? And honestly, Mr. Self, you really have something there. You really should go all around the world speaking about how important it is for men to not just be present, not just to show financial support, but to really show that emotional, that heart-centered support to their young men. I think that would just change the trajectory of our people, just change the trajectory of our world by doing so. So thank you for sharing that. What a powerful, powerful, powerful lesson learned that I know our viewers will take a lot from. I know our time is limited, and I want us to talk about your successes as an entrepreneur, as a self-made man, no pun intended, self. You're one of the very few people I know who not only created success for themselves, but as you said on stage, it's about creating successors, and an umpteen amount, I think to the tune of 40 40 six-figure income earners by the time you were 40. You helped create 40 six-figure income earners by the time you were 40. Based on my notes here, built an organization of over 300,000 people, and I'm sure that number has surpassed that. I mean, you've helped, and again, if my numbers are correct, and I pray that you correct me, because I shall not disrespect your accomplishments.
Please, you don't have to talk about it.
But you produced over 22 and counting, and I could be wrong, because I got this from your website, but over 22 and counting millionaires during your tenure with Legal Shield. What are your success habits? I'm just going to throw it out there. What are your success habits? How?
Yeah. No, thank you. It's uncomfortable for me to talk about our own success, because depending on how you define success will probably determine how a person voices the topic of success and what it really signifies. For me, it is always been about adding value to the lives of others. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. Right. I always felt like, man, there's so many people that have so much potential and they never ever tap into it. And if I could be a conduit, if I could somehow, directly or indirectly, inspire someone to be the best them that they could be. And so affirmations, right? It's part of my affirmation. Every day, right? I affirm who it is that I see myself as, so that I don't slip back into thinking about the person I used to be, because the moment you decide to stay in your comfort zones, the moment that you have decided that everything outside that comfort zone, you will never ever attract. And most of the things you want in your life are outside your comfort zone, because if they were inside your comfort zone, it means you already have them because it's comfortable. And so my affirmations, they affirm everything outside of my comfort zone as if they are currently inside my comfort zone, but they're not. So affirmations are a big deal for me. Associations, I am very careful with who I allow in my ear, right? Those gates are critical. And so I'm very conscious about that. And sometimes I do a detox. Like I just did a 2.5 week social media detox, just because I don't like others dictating what stimuli comes at me. I want to determine what and social media, sometimes you one wrong swipe and
man, let me tell you.
When you start asking questions like, am I the only crazy one? Like, what's happening, right? So I like to determine like what I'm going to read. Like I got my books of the month on my table, my desk here. I like to determine what's going to grow me and not have anybody else say, I think I'm going to have you think this way today. It can mess you up. So, and then I guess another thing I would share is I start my day at 150%. I never start my day at 100%, because something is going to take you from 100%. Look, doesn't matter, right? We were talking about your puppies earlier. That doesn't matter what it is. Something's going to make you say, you know what? Oh my gosh! And now you're at 90%. You know what I mean?
So what does 150% look like? What does that look like?
Yeah, it means that, I've already said what I was grateful for that day. I've already been in prayer or meditation. I've already done my affirmations. I've already read something. So I'm already starting my day off. So far, the average person, they get up, look at some emails, look at some social media, go brush their teeth. And I already know there's no way you can operate at the highest level possible and perform at that level, because listen, we're talking about people, and people are going to call you, girl, you're not going to believe this. I need you got a second. I need your ear. And I'm not understanding they're doing this in a way that they're trying to harm you. That's not typically the case. They just want your ear.
Right.
But yet you've told yourself you got to write this book today. You've got to do this podcast today. You got all this stuff you said you're going to do, but now you don't even feel like it because you're at 70%. You're not operating at 150%. And so my point is yes, I'm not saying avoid those friends and those people are going to call you, but unless you start at 150, man, that's okay if I take those calls, because I do, and I do pour into others. But by the time I pour into them, now I'm at 110. I'm like, let's go. You know what I mean? But I promise you, if I started at 100, if I started by just reading some social media and not pouring into me first, and TD Jakes taught me that, if I did not pour into me first, my gosh, how in the world do I pour out to others when there's nothing left in me? And so as a sponge, I'm poured into first. And now I can rinse back out over other people, what's been poured into me all morning.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Self, you said a word today. Oh my gosh. It's so true. It is so true. And many of us start our day off. We started off wrong. We start off kiltered. We're not centered. And that's one of the questions I had for you is what gets you balanced and centered?
Yeah. I mean, my faith, certainly. My family, it's a big deal. My whole philosophy of my team is faith, family, finance. And then we just added fitness 2 years ago, both mental and physical fitness. Mm-hmm. So I had this goal to lose 50 pounds by the time I turned 50 years old, which I did, by the way. It was 48 pounds. But my point is, right? But again, I had it there. So that keeps me centered. My faith certainly keeps me centered. My family certainly keeps me centered because they don't know me as Mr. Self. They're like, Dad, really? You know what I mean? So my wife, really. But so it's fun. We have a lot of fun together. And I'm the only child, by the way, and I'm a mama's boy. And the values and the morals that my mom raised me with have created a foundation for me that I still build upon. And so I'm very grateful. She, it's not like she had a college degree or had accumulated all this wealth in life, but she shared her wisdom with me, and it allowed me to operate differently as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a leader. Yeah, so I'm very grateful.
Wow. Mr. Self, I almost don't even want, it's not even almost, I don't want to let you go. I wish I could keep you on here for like another 3 hours, but I know that is impossible. As an amazing leader, as an outstanding entrepreneur, as an out of this world business coach, I would highly implore and encourage any of our listeners, if they're interested in partnering up with you or interested in learning more about how they can work with you from an entrepreneurial perspective, or how to get in contact with you as a keynote or inspirational speaker, please let everyone know, how can they stay connected? You're like this mad energy grid. And I know folks are just going to want to plug themselves into you. How can they get in contact with you and stay connected and plugged in, or even work with you, which I highly would encourage you do so, folks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Yeah, we are honored to be able to serve in any capacity, again, that adds value to the lives of others. And I'm on Instagram more than any other social media platform at Darnell. My first name is DARNELL _self. And yes, that's my real last name, Self, like yourself, myself. People ask all the time, did you make up that name? Is that no, it's actually from the Self Plantation in Virginia. And my great-great-grandfather was on the Self Plantation. They bought him in-house and named him their last name, which is Self. That's actually where it came from.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So Instagram or darnellself.com, which is the website. So, but Instagram, I'm pretty responsive there with inbox messages there.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, you heard it first. To get connected to this power grid that we know as Mr. Darnell Self, he is accessible via Instagram as well as his website, which is darnellself.com, and Instagram at Darnell _self.
Perfect.
Darnell with double L, folks, 2 L's _self. gmail.com. My gosh, this was an absolute honor, an amazing pleasure. You've poured into me. You've moved me. And I'm sure that you've done the same for our viewers as well. Can you make me a promise?
Yes.
Promise to come back.
Okay, that's an easy one. I can do that. I do promise. I promise that.
All right, excellent. There you have it, folks. Thank you again for tuning into this week's installment of Demystifying Men, and we look forward to seeing you here again next week as we bring another person to the show that will prove to you and share with you exactly what kingship status is. Take care, take charge. God bless. Sounds familiar, Mr. Self?
Yes, it does.
Have a great night.
In the right place to move. In the right place for you.